So here we are outside Avalon Guitars, and I'm going in to pick my guitar up. Was getting the pickup sorted out on it. The electronics had gone a little bit ski-whiff, and he's going to show us around the workshop. And I've been in it before, actually. Very interesting. It's a little rabbit warren of all different compartments for the different stages in the makeup of guitars. So, and he's going to have a little word with us as well. So here we go. So I'm in the workshop of Avalon Guitars, and behind me here is Stevie McElrath. He's one of the main men here, and he's going to run me through building a guitar, the various steps in it. So we have a sample or two behind us here, and we'll have a little look at that.
Well, Ivan, thanks for visiting Avalon. What I'm going to just briefly show you is that an acoustic guitar is made up of essentially 7 components. The most important of those is the soundboard, because that's the thing that's going to be producing the sound. And every guitar maker has their own way of bracing the soundboard, so we have our own secret sauce recipe for bracing the guitar. Next to that is the back. So the back will match the sides. So these sides have been already bent and jointed together, and the back will have a more simpler type of bracing pattern, and that's to support the stability of the back. And the back and sides, when they're glued together, they're like an audio hi-fi speaker, and then the top would be like the soft membrane on the front that's pushing the air and making the sound. So there we have 3 of the components. The next bit is the neck. So the neck will be made up of 2 main things. The fingerboard, which is ebony in this case, and then the bulk of the neck, which in this case is mahogany. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When all that's put together, we will have bindings. Now this guitar sound box doesn't yet have the bindings, but the bindings will eventually go around the edge, and that gives a nice kind of colour contrast, as well as a bit of protection for the edge of the guitar. When this is all jointed up, we then lacquer it, and when the lacquer is cured, we then add the hardware. So those are the final elements. The bridge will be put on there, it's usually ebony, and then we'll put on the machine heads, the strings, and all the other bits and pieces to make up the guitar. And I'm sure Ivan will give a good demonstration of how they're played when all of this comes together into the finished instrument. We're using a variety of woods for soundboards. We typically use spruce or cedar are the main ones we use. For backs and sides, well, we've about 30 different types of back and side woods. This is one of the more exotic timbers. It comes from Mexico. This is a timber called Ziricote. Produces a beautiful, beautiful sound. And just to go to another part of the world, this is an African wood. This is Madagascar rosewood. So they're just 2 examples, but we've got everything ranging from maple, which is a very light coloured wood, all the way up to very dark wood like English bog oak, for example, which is almost black. So quite a variety of colour and sound, and different patterns in the grain and so on and so forth. So,
how does Irish bog oak affect the sound? What difference does it give you?
Good question. The denser the wood, then the more deep and resonant it's going to be. But the back and sides have only a minor influence on the sound of the guitar. The most important component is the soundboard. The soundboard and the way it's braced, the quality of the material, that's over 80%, maybe 90% of the tone of the guitar. The back and sides just add a little tint of flavour. There's nothing much else that they do, apart from looking very stunning, of course, as well. Unless you go to the likes of Brazilian rosewood, which is considered to be the king of tone woods for guitar making, that does input a fair amount of influence on the sound of the guitar.
So the guitars you're making, personalising these for any buyer anywhere around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. We export all over the world, and about 80% of what we do is custom guitars. So people have come in and asked for their name on the headstock inlaid in shell, or they've a little motif that they like, or little features. I don't know if you can see in this guitar, but this guitar has a feature which is called a bevel edge. So that's just been rounded off for us to create the bevel edge on the front and the back. So it'll be quite stunning looking when that's completed.
So I'm not asking you to name drop, but name drop.
Name drop. Well, I suppose some of the most famous musicians.
Apart from myself, as you know.
There's a chap called Ivan McFerrin. Apart from Ivan, probably the most famous players would be Van Morrison, another Ivan, and Bruce Springsteen, for example. The Corrs were all playing Avalon guitars. I could go on and on and on. Katie Malua, Marianne Faithfull actually has one. Bob Geldof, and then in the world of worship music, there's quite a number of very well-known singer-songwriters, hymn writers like Keith Getty and Stuart Townend will play Avalon guitars as well. So quite a lot.
Wide as the ocean, high as the heavens above, deep as the deepest sea is my Savior's love. Though so unworthy, still I'm a child of His care. For His word teaches me that His love reaches me everywhere.
So thank you very much, Stevie, for that interview and you did and tour around Avalon Guitars. That was very interesting. And folks, next week we will be going down to a little place, parish of Ardkeen, into a little hamlet called Ballygila, and there's a little cottage in there, and it was bought over 100 years ago by a Mr. Curran. But John from Kirkcudbright is going to tell us about the history of it. It was his grandfather, how many folk lived in it, how life was about 100 years ago. So from the Woolies at Glastry, we'll see you in part 31. Working on a farm up at the crack of dawn. Jump out of bed and get your overalls on.
Get your overalls